just love you. If everybody had an ocean across the USA.
The Beach Boys sold America a lie. Not the music. The music was real. But the image of five happy, sun-kissed, wave-riding California boys, that was a product. And behind that product was one of the most devastating stories in the history of rock and roll. It starts with a father. Murray Wilson didn't just manage his sons, Brian, Dennis, and Carl Wilson. He controlled them. According to multiple accounts from band members and biographers, Murray was physically and verbally abusive throughout their childhood. Brian Wilson has said publicly that Murray struck him so hard as a child that he lost partial hearing in his right ear. That same deaf ear would later become the one Brian used to compose some of the most intricate harmonies in American music history. Murray used that detail to claim credit. That tells you everything about who Murray Wilson was. By 1961, the Beach Boys had formed. Brian, Dennis, Carl, their cousin Mike Love, and friend Al Jardine. Murray made himself their manager immediately. According to band members, he fined them $100, then later $1,000 for swearing, drinking, or spending time with women. He ran them like employees, not sons. By 1964, they had enough. Brian Wilson shoved his own father out of a recording session. The first fracture was done. But something else happened in December 1964 that most people don't talk about. On the 18th of that month, Brian Wilson boarded a flight from Los Angeles to Houston to begin a 2-week tour. Somewhere in the air, Brian broke down. Completely. He was sobbing, unable to function, unable to explain why. According to Brian himself, the stress had simply accumulated beyond what a human being could carry. He flew home. He never toured consistently again. He was 22 years old. From that point forward, Brian Wilson stayed in the studio. The rest of the band hit the road. Two worlds, one name. What Brian Wilson produced in that studio over the next 2 years should have been the band's greatest triumph. In 1966, he created Pet Sounds, an album so structurally complex and emotionally honest that Paul McCartney reportedly wept the first time he heard it. But inside the band, Mike Love, Brian's own cousin, allegedly told Brian during a playback, and this is according to multiple sources close to sessions, "Who's gonna hear this stuff? The ears of a dog." Love believed the Beach Boys were a hits machine. Brian believed there was something more. Brian ignored him, and then went further. He began work on Smile, a project he called a teenage symphony to God. Through early 1967, release dates were set and cancelled. Brian was recording in multiple studios simultaneously, building something that no one fully understood. Then came a session for a track called Mrs. O'Leary's Cow. Brian lit candles in the studio to feel the music. That night, according to people present, a fire broke out nearby. Brian became convinced, genuinely, psychologically convinced, that his music was causing fires across Los Angeles. He destroyed the tapes. In July 1967, he abandoned Smile entirely. The album would not be heard for nearly 40 years. Brian Wilson retreated inward. By 1967, he had stopped touring completely, stopped leaving the house most days, and had begun using cocaine, hallucinogens, and eventually heroin. According to Carl Wilson in later interviews, there were periods where Brian could not get out of bed for days. His weight climbed past 300 pounds. He would eventually confine himself to his bedroom for 2.5 straight years. Meanwhile, Mike Love kept touring. Al Jardine kept touring. Carl Wilson kept touring. The Beach Boys as a live act continued. Brian Wilson was simply not in it. In late 1975, Brian's wife Marilyn hired a psychologist named Dr. Eugene Landy. Landy ran what he called a 24-hour therapy program. Assistants monitored Brian around the clock. The treatment showed results. In 1976, Brian rejoined the band and produced 15 Big Ones, his first sole production credit since Pet Sounds. It felt like a comeback. It wasn't. By the end of 1976, Landy's monthly fee had climbed to $20,000. Brian's family fired him. Brian relapsed. Then in 1982, Brian Wilson overdosed. Landy came back. And this time, he didn't just treat Brian, he took over Brian's life. According to court documents and testimony from those close to Wilson, Landy inserted himself as Brian's manager, co-songwriter, and eventually a named beneficiary in Brian's will. When asked in 1984 whether he influenced Brian's music, Landy told a magazine, his exact words, "Why not? I influence all his thinking." By 1988, Landy had writing credits on 5 songs of Brian's solo debut. In 1991, Brian published a memoir called Wouldn't It Be Nice? And according to witnesses, Landy ghostwrote significant portions, placing himself as a hero throughout the narrative. That same year, 1991, Brian's family discovered that Landy had changed Brian's will to make himself the primary beneficiary. A restraining order was filed. In 1992, the relationship was finally severed. The California Board of Medical Quality Assurance revoked Landy's license. But 1992 also brought something else. Brian's memoir had named names, and Mike Love came after him. Love sued Brian Wilson for defamation. He settled for $1.5 million. Then in 1994, Love filed a second suit, this time claiming that Murray Wilson had fraudulently kept Love's name off the songwriting credit for dozens of Beach Boys songs. Songs Love claimed he had co-written lyrically as far back as the early 1960s. According to court records, Brian Wilson agreed to pay Mike Love $5 million and split future royalties on 35 songs. Love called it, in his own words, almost certainly the largest case of fraud in music history. Meanwhile, Dennis Wilson was already dead. On December 28, 1983, Dennis Wilson, the actual surfer, the wild one, the one who once let Charles Manson live in his house, drowned in the marina at Marina del Rey, California. He was intoxicated. He was 39 years old. According to reports from that period, in the months before his death, Dennis and Mike Love had become so hostile toward each other that both had filed restraining orders against the other. In November 1983, Dennis had been ordered into rehab or be banned from live performances. 5 weeks later, Dennis Wilson was gone. Then in 1998, Carl Wilson died of lung and brain cancer at 51. The peacemaker, the one who had held the group's fraying edges together through sheer decency. Gone. With Carl dead, there was no buffer left. In 2012, for the band's 50th anniversary, Brian Wilson, Mike Love, Al Jardine, Bruce Johnston, and David Marks reunited. They toured. They released That's Why God Made the Radio. Fans believed this was finally it, the real ending, the reconciliation. It lasted one tour. In September 2012, Mike Love and Bruce Johnston released a press statement announcing the reunion was over and the band would revert to the Love and Johnston lineup. No prior conversation with Brian. No warning to Al Jardine or David Marks. Brian Wilson wrote a CNN op-ed in response. The title, "It Kinda Feels Like Getting Fired." Mike Love's reply, "I did not fire Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys. 2 men, 1 name, 50 years of wounds." On January 30th, 2024, Melinda Wilson, Brian's wife, the woman he publicly credited with saving his life, died. Days later, Brian's attorneys filed a court petition stating he was suffering from a major neurocognitive disorder consistent with dementia and could no longer care for himself. Brian Wilson died on June 11, 2025. He was 82. At his funeral, according to Al Jardine, Mike Love's eulogy focused more on Mike Love than on Brian Wilson. Some things, apparently, never change.